Okay, the awakening season of leadership. And as we know, Paul, it's not a season, it is a full-time journey. But
Yep.
to make it available for a conversation, let's talk about it as a season. And maybe can I invite you to share a little bit about positional power as a leader and personal power as a leader in a much broader context.
Yeah, I do want to take just a moment because episode 1 and 2 will lead into this. So it doesn't mean that you can't listen to this independently if you've just found it or someone's recommended it. But if you are listening to this, episode 1 and 2 of season 2, I think are very important lead ups to this because it builds on the energy.
As in identity friction?
Yes.
As in burnout?
Yes.
All right. And inner authority?
Yeah. So not to say that you can't have an awakening from a springboard of nothing. It's where you are, and there might be no detrimental issues that you're getting over. But I'd encourage everyone at least to listen to episode 1 and 2 at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And even that word awakening it's multi-layered, right? It is a good thing if you or I or anyone needing to make a shift simply wakes up to themselves, as in let go of some negatives. Yeah. A phrase as a young lad was, "Son, wake up to yourself. Pull your head in. Make a shift. Don't do that negative thing anymore. Wake up to yourself. Wake up." That's useful. But at a deeper level, we're also talking about awakening to the magnificence and authentic capacity of your inner knowing and your personal power.
And the possibilities. Like, feel limitless and not limited. And it's hard in the world at the moment, especially if you're watching the news and you're talking about these sort of global topics with your friends and politics and whatnot and work problems, and you've got into this sort of digest of just complaining and moaning, but you don't realize it, right? That's just where the narrative's gone. I said there's more to the world than you think it is, right? If you could jump on a plane and go somewhere tomorrow and experience something new, you'd be like shocked that the world is so plentiful, that there's so much, you meet so many different people with different opinions and perspectives and jobs and so you can see the passion in other people and what they're doing. Is that the world is bigger than you think it is, and that's a good thing, and that should not scare you because it allows you the space to step into.
Yeah, exactly. And later in this episode we'll talk about the door to your dreams is truly always open. Yeah. And what are you waiting for, right? However, that question, personal power and positional power, in my experience, all high caliber leaders need to use both. So what is personal power? Personal power is the reason and purpose you do the things you do. It's the energy you bring to a given situation, and at its simplest level, it's, am I consciously and purposefully embodying choices and behaviour in my life from a place of love, or am I defaulting to choices and behaviour in my life from some level of fear? And it's a continuum, right? It's not I'm all love, I'm all fear. It's across a horizontal line of graded possibilities. 0 to 100 might be a good way to frame it.
Yeah.
Zero, I'm coming from fear in almost a permanent state. 100, I'm coming from love in almost a personal state, which some people would call, divine illumination. But we, as human beings, and in my years of coaching and professional experiences in workplaces, we sit somewhere between 25 out of 100, 75 out of 100, oscillating between aspects of fear and aspects of love.
Yeah.
And so personal power is how do you and I learn to amplify the depth and magnificence of how we show up in situations, how we deal with mistakes and misunderstandings. Are we capable of offering empathy, compassion, forgiveness instead of blame, judgment and criticism? Are we on a path of using our personal power to nurture the human spirit as distinct from on a path to crush and destroy and conquer other human beings perhaps? And all living beings, yeah? Are we embedded in nature and able to energetically ground and connect to the beauty of Mother Earth and the flows of the ocean and the magnificence of the stars in our galaxy, which is one of billions and billions of galaxies, right? So personal power is the integration of all of that knowing and all of that possibility and living from a grounded, love-based, intentional choice. Positional power in the Western world in particular is the titles, trappings and resources that go with the more traditional ladder of career success. So, the academic credentials that, people like me chased when we were going through the early stages of our career, wanting the university degrees, wanting the accreditation and membership of professional societies.
Yeah, the name on the wall.
Yeah.
The car park closest to the office.
Competing with each other to exactly get those little perks, who's got the best corner office and who has access to executive assistants and who has access to additional resources and a large travel budget.
And has access to power.
Yes, yeah. And that's all positional.
Yeah.
And there's nothing improper about ethical and considered use of your positional power. But unfortunately, what we see for a lot of good people, they start on a path of genuine intention and purpose, but they get seduced by the ego of power. And human behaviour has forever known the truth of that statement, if you like. Power corrupts, positional power corrupts, and ultimate power corrupts ultimately. So all power ultimately corrupts if you're attached to the ego and the status of the position. And if we look at the pattern of the modern world and who's leading and who's making world-changing choices for millions of people's lives, positional power is a real problem. Misuse of it.
Yeah. And from like a very real-world example in the workplace, like early on in my career when we were building software, I would go into workplaces and do this thing called requirements gathering. And it was great because you got to meet everyone that kind of worked in the company.
Yeah.
From low levels to top senior level managers. And you were there to figure out what they did in their role and process that out so that you could build software around it. And so I guess it's one of the first times too that people were forced to really look at a business laterally. So across all departments, how do those departments work together? Because without that and the handover of jobs from one to the other, we couldn't actually get requirements. And so when I got into these places, you'd see that there was incredible positional power in those decisions of how people did their jobs. It was just that you do this because that's the way we've said to do it. Don't have an opinion on it. This is the way we've always done it. And then when you started talking to people about the friction that they were finding in the workplace and how that was causing problems between departments and what was the objective we were really trying to achieve, you'd see that like people were open to using their personal power. It's like, how can I do my job better to help you? So when this handover process, and so we'd go up and down the chain and we'd actually then work out a better process for the company to operate, only because we were in there trying to build software for them.
Yeah.
And what was great about that was that you would leave after this process and people were enthused. They felt like they had some say. They felt like that process actually worked in and made their lives better. And then, a year or two down the track, you get a phone call and it would be, hey, we've got a problem. Can you come in? And we'd come in and you'd find that some senior level manager that's come from a new company had used their positional power to change all those systems that were just implemented.
Yeah.
And then you saw this hamstringing of the personal power those employees had that they just lost.
And a correlated dimension there is this, your systems were designed to nurture the human spirit.
Exactly.
Whereas the positional power was probably misused to create bureaucracy and hierarchy and structure.
And that happens for all sorts of reasons. It's not just ego. It's not just saying, I wear this coat and I get to make a decision. It is sometimes because someone thinks that they know best without consulting others.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I love about that too is that you'd sit in these meetings and you, even as an outside contractor, you were able to use your positional power to say, hold on, like I believe this is the wrong change for your company and you start to use the employee statements to follow through.
Yeah, and what you also are tapping into is conversations of alignment.
Exactly, yeah.
So the deeper intention and purpose is aligned rather than haggling unnecessarily over what we're going to do or what's the pathway to do it. No, what's the reason and purpose behind it so we can align.
Yeah.
And for this, anyone who's going, yep, that, I recognise I want to step deeper into my personal power and I want to amplify my identity as a leader, not as I'm called the CEO, but just people notice that I'm a person who's authentic and genuine with integrity and commitment, and I'm interested in the highest good for all concerned, and I'm looking to have these conversations of alignment, right? And we often talk, Paul, about stepping over the line, like here's where I am now at a certain point in my life. What do I need to do to amplify my personal power into the future? How do I step into that identity?
Yeah. I think that's the sort of third level of power here. We talked about personal power, positional power. I want to talk about the power of now.
Mm-hmm.
Like now is the moment to make that decision. So there is that book, Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and I'd recommend you go read it, but I'd recommend that you start to embody that. So one of the frustrations in this workplace, or the situations, even teams that I come into, sporting teams, is that if you have a team of 12 people and those 12 people have to come together as a business or come together as a sports team, they are the ones that are on the ground operating. Okay. Now they come in and everyone's dissatisfied and the blame is put on some senior manager. And I always get a little bit frustrated because I say, hold on, but you 12 do all the work, right? So the energy that you bring in to this group, you rock up with, yeah? It's not like you walk over, you cross a line and then the negative energy just piles on. You have to just wear that coat.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a big issue, right? Because how many people in modern workplaces will still say something like, I zip up my personality, I go in and do my 9 to 5 role. When I leave, I can magically unzip my personality and I become my true self.
Yeah.
That's such an illusion.
Well, we have to term it now work-life balance, because it has to be a separation, because one is shit and one other is great.
Yeah. Whereas leadership awakening is, I love all dimensions of myself.
Yeah.
And I delight in weaving the creative tapestry of my life. And again, we're talking about it at a conceptual level. There are concrete, specific tools, strategies, and techniques about how to do it, which is obviously...
So the awakening is this is a moment that can change. If you're listening to this on the way to work, or you're listening to this at work, or you're about to go to sports training and things are being wrong, you have a voice. You have some personal power here, and you can use that voice. If you've been holding it in, right, and bringing yourself down and playing small, now is to stand up, broad shoulders, and speak your truth. And it doesn't have to be in a way that's attacking someone else. It just can be just simply the concept that this can be better, and let's try and make it better, right? Because and Peter's more versed at this, because you do a lot of executive leadership coaching. So you go into these big businesses. I do more personal coaching. I try and get you before you go in the door. And Peter goes, oh, if you came in the door and you're feeling like crap, I can help out from an organizational perspective, right? And so we work at different sides, but we're trying to achieve the same goal, which is, he calls it nurturing the human spirit. I call it empowering the individual. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
But this is the moment to feel empowered, to stand up and say, you can be the change you want to see in the world. And that's not a small, it's not a small concept, but it's like a small action will lead you there. And there's that saying, like the cliches are the secret to life, right? It's that little saying that keeps on getting passed around and around is, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
They're passed around because they work.
And the other beautiful, let's call it a saying, but they're really phrases of wisdom, right? The door to your dreams is always open. What are you waiting for? And the answer in a lot of cases, Paul, is because I've been conditioned to a certain deference, if you like, to positional power, that I believe someone is wiser and more expert than me, so I've got to genuflect to their positional power.
Well, that's it. Where's this guidance coming from?
Well,
what is the guidance and where is it coming from?
Inner knowing, guidance, talk about that.
And so I think too that...
How do you allow the guidance?
Yeah, so you have to be very in touch with where you want to be. We sort of discussed that in episode 1 and 2, and when we're sort of back there at the door, because now is the moment to let it out, right? I'm saying that you don't need to completely upheave everything and change your whole life. Sometimes it's just small incremental change that will lead to a big change in your energy, right? And that's all you need. So we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? But you see a lot of people they're sort of wanting to exit, and they're just going, I'm prepared to throw everything away, so I start from a clean slate. I'm saying, be careful with that one, whether you need to do it. So the guidance that you're looking for is the one that's going to best align with you. It's not just because that person holds positional power over you. And so they're saying, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do and how to do it. Be very wary of those ones saying, I know what you're capable of and I know how you can get it, because a lot of that is very individualized. It's going to have to come from you. And I'd say that look to that internal guidance. Look to that, I keep saying it, it's the intuition, it's the calling, it's inside of you. You've got to stop pushing it down. You've got to stop running from it. You got to stand up and actually allow it to be.
And don't sabotage.
Don't sabotage. Yeah.
Don't self-sabotage with limiting beliefs or defaulting back to old patterns.
You know what's funny about self-sabotage too is used in society today as though it's almost like it's an excuse. I'm self-sabotaging again because it's such a common term, right? Like, how many times do you want to slap yourself before you wanting to change?
Yeah. But once again, there's science that matters to the power of the mind, right?
Let's go through that.
Neural pathways are reinforced through repetition. Repetition.
We are what we repeatedly do.
So when a person is awakening as a leader to their personal power at the next level, and they're stepping into that identity, there will be relapses. They will, from old ingrained limiting patterns of the past, slip up and go back to those old patterns. So again, why I said there's concrete ways to do this, right? And why do we always talk in our podcast about physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual rituals? Because it's a pyramid of uplift. And if you and I are focusing on the discipline of our physical energy, whether it's gym training, whether it's going for a regular walk, whether it's swimming in an ocean beach or whatever's available to you, not world championship athlete, just I have a physical ritual and some routines for health and wellness at that level. I'm aware of my nutrition. I control or at least try to moderate the amount of alcohol, cocaine, or whatever else I'm using it as a recreational pattern rather than stepping into my own personal power. These could also be points of self-sabotage. But if you're doing the physical rituals, then what emotional rituals are you doing? How am I breaking the link between old negative thoughts and the previously limiting feelings of fear and vulnerability?
And the self-sabotage can happen from giving up your positional power. So positional power is not bad, and particularly if you're running a company and you're thinking about safety, you're thinking about the processes that impact the most amount of the people to make sure that their livelihoods are taken care of and they're having a good environment. Sometimes you've got to use that positional power. So don't be afraid of that. Don't sabotage yourself because you're like, I'm leading with love now. I've changed my life. This is all moving in a positive direction. Don't be afraid to have the tough conversation.
Yeah, it's called boundaries.
Yeah.
No, because X, Y, Z is the reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put a boundary in.
And so what the calling here is, what is your awakening? What does it look like? That's the question you can ask yourself, and I'd ask you to ruminate on that. It's not a simple answer. I'd ask you to, if you don't journal, I'd ask you to write about it. I'd ask you to have a moment by yourself. Go take a swim in the ocean. Go take a sauna. Do something different, and just ruminate on what does your awakening look like.
And you'll know you're on that path if in part of your awakening is you're starting to notice old limiting beliefs that no longer serve your highest good. And you go, well, that was then, but this is now. I'm no longer handcuffed to an old pattern just because Mr. and Mrs. Average say so, or the lowest common denominator in government policy decision making has made a rule about it. I am the expert in my own life. I love, trust and approve of me, and I'm going to let go of old patterns that no longer serve the highest good of all concerned, and I'm going to go and find an ecosystem and model and hang out with high caliber performers and leaders who are using high level motivational insights. And often they'll be those type of people will be attached to spiritual perspectives, things that are deep embedded knowing, deeper than words, and an energetic personal capacity to align with a higher source of knowing, would you say?
Yeah. And I call it the calling, and it's I believe it's in each of us. And you meet people that have at a very young age just they've not shied away from it. They've just allowed it to consume them. Yeah. And they've lived a successful life in their terms of success. And you ask them about it, and they look at it so trivial because they're like, well, why would you do anything else? Yeah. Why would you do something that doesn't align with that? They just don't get it because they've always done it. For me, I haven't. I've done everything I can in my life to push away from my calling. I've met lots of other people who've done that too, but both exist. And as you say, it's not just one or the other. There is a line here of which you could be, a scale of which you could be on. I just say, you know it because you can feel it, and when you talk to someone and they're feeling it, you get the energy.
There's a vibration, a frequency.
Yeah.
Frequency changes behaviour more than words. The vibration. Yeah. So as we wrap this up, I'm very excited that as we start to bring some of the guests for our 40-minute interviews on the podcast, we'll be asking exactly that. What were these moments of awakening into their leadership, amplifying their personal power, stepping out of old limiting beliefs? What were some of these limiting beliefs?
Yeah.
How did they make the shift? So shift on purpose, great journey to be on at the moment.
And I just want to say that this the new season, it wouldn't be possible without two people. They're just sitting over here. So Jai, thank you. Jennifer, thank you. Because Peter and I were busy. We've got things going on. We wanted to do this, and
it took us 4 years between.
It took us 4 years between drinks, but we got back. I'm now almost 5 years completely sober. It's I think at the start of it was just starting sobriety. So a thank you to you two as well for making this happen. So all right,
good chat. Thank you.
Chat, yeah, thanks.